JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is stupid and ridiculous, but I love it so damn much. It's rare when I find an anime franchise that I grow personally attached to, but over the last few months, I've slowly succumbed to JoJo's as I felt it begin to take over me. I have only consumed parts 1, 2, and 3 out of the 8 completed parts, and I would already consider it one of my top 10 anime series of all time. JoJo's was always one of those anime series. It was always there, lurking over my shoulder. For as long as I can remember, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has been a staple of otaku culture. Seeing as its primary adaptation began in 2012, it makes plenty of sense why I would feel that way. I would have barely been 10 years old when its first season aired, meaning that just as I was getting into anime at age 12, JoJo's was experiencing a new genesis of popularity. It was one of those series, like One Piece, like Bleach, like Fullmetal Alchemist. I always knew that I was going to eventually watch JoJo's, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised that all the JoJo's fans over the years have been right this whole time. However, to me, JoJo's is fascinating and unique in a way that other popular, culturally significant anime are not. I actually don't think JoJo's is all that well written in a conventional sense. No, I believe that the collective communal love for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure stems from the fact that the events and characters of this story are impossible to forget. One of the most appealing characteristics of this series is that even though the story is split into parts, everything is connected through the generational feud between the Joestar Bloodline and Dio. Following the Joestars through multiple decades and watching as this everlasting connection to Dio is woven throughout the story of each JoJo's part is genuinely one of my favorite aspects of this franchise. This is something that is so unique to JoJo's. It's not simply one story set in one period of time. It's a story of multiple generations that all tie back to the beginning. Personally, I've yet to see this type of fragmented storytelling executed so interestingly in really any other piece of media I've consumed. Having the story connect to different generations causes me to start thinking about the series even when I'm not actively consuming it. For example, I was curious as to how a new JoJo could be born and grown up in part 4 if part 3 takes place so close to modern day when the manga was written. JoJo's never really seemed like a story that was going to speculate about the distant future, sci-fi style. I've also found myself traversing fan wiki pages looking at family trees in order to get a clear picture of the generations of JoJo's. When I'm not watching JoJo's, I'm constantly wondering how everything connects. Furthermore, the concept of splitting the story into distinctive parts is clever on multiple fronts. Depending on the part, JoJo's transforms its genre, setting, and cast dramatically. Whether you agree with people skipping parts or not, objectively, this gives readers or viewers multiple jumping on or off points. Having defined starting and end points allows for the potential to create more fans. Personally, as someone who generally likes change and shaking things up, this does wonders for me in keeping me invested. There are few feelings more exciting to me in anime than starting a new JoJo's part. Particularly, I cherish the excitement of meeting a new distinctive JoJo, and seeing how this story and character are going to tie back to the previous ones. I felt a rush of excitement seeing Joseph meet up with Jotaro in Stardust Crusaders, and I was maybe even more excited at the start of part 4, with Jotaro coming to the realization that the person he was looking for, Josuke, was right in front of him. Scenes like these really have no right to be as hype as they are, but there's an inherent excitement to be felt when a character whose story you thought was over carries over to the next. At least for me there is. All in all, I think it's awesome the way each part zooms in on one part of the Joestar timeline and focuses on a new member of the family tree. And I love meeting the characters that surround their stories. Speaking of characters, Part 1 I felt was lacking in good characters, but at least we had Dio, who was interesting because of his over-the-top evil presence. Jonathan is pretty forgettable in terms of his actual personality, but the way I see it, he represents the base code that makes up a JoJo. He's the original model. the moral gold standard. Every JoJo that follows has Jonathan's innate sense of justice and extroverted nature. Every JoJo has Jonathan's willingness to help those in a pinch. Of course, Part 1 introduces Speedwagon, a man whose legacy within the Speedwagon Foundation would far outlive him. Unfortunately though, this is really all I have to say about the characters of Part 1. JoJo's characters, admittedly, are not the strongest part of the series, but when they're good, they're incredible. Joseph, in Battle Tendency especially, is such a great protagonist. He's so much fun to watch that he often serves as the true gateway into the series for a lot of fans, myself included. Immediately upon meeting him, I became hooked on JoJo's. Joseph is wacky, eccentric, charismatic, and kind-hearted. You just don't forget a Chad like him. In his first scene, he broke the finger of a racist cop with a soda bottle cap. Not to mention, the guy's a genius. I loved his quirk of predicting someone's next line. I honestly love Joseph so much. Now, while Joseph stole the show, I thought the rest of Part 2's characters were a bit lackluster. I definitely liked Caesar Zappelli and his prideful juxtaposition to Joseph, but if I'm being honest, Joseph was really the only character worth talking about from Battle Tendency. While I don't think the Stardust Crusaders individually are super well written, I love the group dynamic. There's a pure bro atmosphere surrounding them that I really enjoy.
It should go without saying, but we can't talk underwater. Instead, we'll use hand signals.
Mr. Joestar, couldn't we just use our stands to communicate underwater?
I was just about to say that I know a really good hand signal.
He says your underwear is showing.
Yeah, nice!
We could be attacked and killed at any time!
Sorry to disappoint, but I thought Jotaro was kind of bland. I see him as the word stoic personified. He has the base JoJo components that I mentioned earlier, but on top of that, his character is mostly defined by his stoicism and badassery, which I am fine with because it leads to moments like this one that I thought was hilarious. However, it means that I found him kind of boring. The breakout star of Part 3, apart from Joseph, for me is actually Polnareff. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but god, this guy's incredible. I love how confidently stupid Polnareff is in every second of every day. Although he may be stupid, he's not just dumb. He's very tactical in battle, and emotionally, we know he cares for others. To me, he feels like the character who we see the most sides of out of all the Crusaders. Now, I'm only 5 episodes into Part 4 as I write this script, but I'm actually enjoying Josuke's characterization a lot. I'm having a suspicion that I may come to really like this guy. He may end up my favorite JoJo, but it's still way too early for me to tell definitively. I normally don't talk about character designs when I talk about characters, but I really do want to say something about these character designs. Watching JoJo's, I get the feeling that Hirohiko Araki doesn't believe in traditional masculinity, and that's something that I picked up on just from looking at the character designs. Nowhere in any of the first 3 story arcs do the characters ever talk about what it means to be a man, or why men shouldn't have to be overtly masculine, but when I look at how these characters are designed, it just clicks in my head. These are straight male characters who are jacked, yet the way they dress and the way they pose their bodies is sometimes very effeminate. Subconsciously, JoJo's presents a very progressive look at the basic idea of being a man. In JoJo's, we watch these pretty-faced boys who dress and pose in feminine ways be fucking badass, and without us even having to think about it, it begins to normalize the idea of embracing our feminine qualities. No one person is purely feminine or purely masculine. Some guys are so insecure about their masculinity that they'll worry about silly things like the way they're standing might make them look feminine. But a JoJo's fan might embrace that because it'll make them feel like a JoJo's character. My point is that a lot of us guys have issues accepting and embracing the parts of us that are not masculine because of how society judges men who are feminine. I know that's something I've certainly struggled with, so I think it's pretty cool to have this show that makes us not feel weird for simply existing as who we are, even if it's just a little bit. If there is one thing that I love about JoJo's, it's how much it lives up to the bizarre in the title. In fact, bizarre seems like an understatement sometimes. I love that this series is so gung-ho about going off the rails. Sometimes you're watching JoJo's and you don't even realize just how ridiculous the thing you're watching is until you take a step back and think about it. I mean, Joseph killed Cars by launching him into outer space, and JoJo's fans treat it like it's just another fact of life. Because it is! Relative to the series, that's hardly the strangest thing to happen. The things that happen in this show are so outlandish and strange. Do you not believe me? In that case, here are some examples that I remember off the top of my head. While temporarily reverted to a younger version of himself, Jean-Pierre Polnareff escapes being forcefully drowned by pooping in the water. One of the antagonists of Part 3, Whole Horse, sticks his fingers up Polnareff's nose because a future-predicting manga drawn by a child stand said that that would be a good idea. Jotaro literally puts a gun to his own head and fires it in order to demonstrate the power and more accurately the precision of his stand, which catches the bullet mid-air after it's been shot. And just look at this scene of Will Zappelli punching a frog to demonstrate the power of the ripple, which, side note, Crunchyroll left untranslated, so I've been referring to this power as Hamon. The cherry scene, Kono Dioda, goodbye JoJo! All of it is unhinged fun, and I love just about every second of it. Even moving outside of the plot, the studio animating the series, David Production, has been absolutely killing it with this adaptation. I love how ridiculously over the top the production is for this series. Particularly, I love the OPs, the direction, and the voice acting. The OPs are all incredible original songs with stunning, detailed visuals. I think the direction is very unique with all the color palette swapping. And I mean, come on. JoJo's voice acting is the top tier standard. Dio in particular is the GOAT. Sometimes I find it cathartic while I'm in the middle of a workout to let out a guttural Zawarudo from the deepest part of my soul. Anyways, in general, the whole anime has an insane, exaggerated feel that is so fitting for the story it's adapting. To put it another way, I don't think JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is just good. I think it is undeniably ridiculous. I think it is amusing and hilarious. With the exception of Jonathan and Part 1 in general, I think JoJo's characters are impressively entertaining. I've never quite known a character like Joseph in Part 2, and the bromance of the Stardust Crusaders is quite literally to die for. Too soon? I love the way Hiroaki challenges the way we look at men. His male characters are effeminate, masculine, physically strong, mentally sound, emotional, and logical all at the same time. He manages to insert into JoJo's this very based idea that good men are well balanced in all different aspects. A concept that was probably thought of as ridiculous when those characters were written in the late 80s and 90s. Furthermore, the production of JoJo's matches the level of extravagance of the manga, leading to one of the most over-the-top experiences in anime. It's an experience that is unique, it's an experience that is a blast to sit down and watch, and it's an experience that you will not forget anytime soon. I may make another video about JoJo's in the future once I've watched every part, but for now, this is why I believe that calling this series simply good would be an insult. Because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, to me, is unforgettable.